Back to 2008 spending levels. And then I want to form a constitutional caucus in the United States Senate for the purpose of examining everything the executive branch is doing to determine, is this constitutional or is it not? I mean, folks, when you hear Leon Panetta say we don't need the Congress to give us permission to start a conflict, all we need is the permission of an international body, I'm thinking to myself, am I in the twilight zone here? Where do you get the authority to say you can commit the lives and perhaps cause the deaths of American military personnel because some foreign body said you could? I mean, it's crazy. So, got to come back to the Constitution and remember that the Constitution was founded on Judeo-Christian values. I may get an argument here about that, but I believe that with all my heart, that this idea is critical to who we are as a country. If our rights come from government, or our rights come from the Constitution, or our rights come from a president, then guess what? The same body, the same document that gives them can take them away. No, our founders believe that our rights come from our Creator, that they are inherent in who we are as human beings. Not even the Constitution gives us rights. It doesn't give it to us. It simply secures rights that we have that are inherent in us as human beings. I believe we've got to come back to that notion if we're ever going to respect and honor the Constitution the way we should. And so I'll end with this. Folks, I believe that this election is really about one thing: freedom. It's about freedom. Now, somebody asked me earlier, am I a social conservative? Now, I've practiced law for 15 years, but I'm in ministry now. I do have a biblical worldview. I believe that we all have a worldview, and that all law functions not within a vacuum, but within some context. And so I do believe that society has a responsibility to set some sort of moral standard. And I think we do that with our criminal laws and a host of other things. So there are some things, yes, I believe that, I believe in marriage as I think God ordained it. I believe, that life should be protected from conception to natural death. I believe that. But for those of you who are, shall we say, more libertarian on those issues, let me just say this. I also believe the government's got to get out of the people's lives to the fullest extent we can get. To the fullest extent we can get. I don't believe in affirmative action. I don't believe in all these crazy government programs that people come up with. We've got to get those things out of the way so that people can fulfill their God-given potential without the heavy hand of government trying to move us around like puppets. Tell us what kind of light bulb you can screw in, and what kind of car you can drive, what kind of fuel you can put in your car. You all know what they're doing now, trying to do now with ethanol to change the standards. And even in Southwest Virginia, because of the mining, they're telling people whether they can plant a garden or not. The EPA's got to come test your yard. They'll tell you whether you can plant a garden. I mean, come on, this stuff has got to end. It's got to end. So this is about freedom. And folks, that's what I'm fighting for. I grew up in a foster home. I was an F student and a juvenile delinquent. My father came back into my life, taught me discipline, gave me some choices. Either he was going to tear my behind all the pieces, or I was going to do what he told me to do. And I decided doing what he told me to do was a whole lot easier than getting my behind torn all the pieces. Changed my life dramatically. Became an A student in 6th grade, went on to graduate summa cum laude from the University of Massachusetts with a Phi Beta Kappa Key, and on Harvard Law School and Harvard Divinity School. Now, I say that to brag on my dad and to brag on my country, because that's what happens in a land of freedom. Where you get to make the choices that chart the course of your life. And so, folks, that's what this election is all about. That's what this year is all about, in my view. We have got to get rid of Barack Obama. We have got to get rid of any of the legislators who don't believe in freedom or in our Constitution as I think the founders intended. I think if we don't do that, as Ronald Reagan said, freedom is only one generation from extinction. We do not pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for and protected, or we will spend our sunset years telling our children about the United States of America, where men were once free. Freedom is what it's all about. Thank you all very much. I'll be happy to take any questions that you have. Well, I guess I've answered them all.
I have a quick question.
Anyway,
Could you comment on the Ryan budget plan and
Which plan?
Paul Ryan's and the Rand Paul's budget plan. Will you pursue something similar in the Senate, or something similar to the Paul plan?
Well, you know, look, I admire Paul Ryan for putting forth a plan. At least he's doing something. The idea that it's going to take 25 years to balance the budget, I think is insane. I think that's insane. We can't wait that long. I don't think we can do that. As you know, Rand Paul and Jim DeMint and Mike Lee and I believe Marco Rubio have agreed to a budget that balances in 5 years. Now, there's some very dramatic cuts that they intend to make in order to get us there, and some whole departments, wholesale, that they intend to eliminate in order to help get us there. And of course, some reforms in Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare in order to get us there. I support their concept of what it's going to take to balance the budget, more so than I support Paul Ryan's, because it takes so very, very long. And you know, I'm amazed when Democrats and liberals called Paul Ryan's budget radical. And I'm thinking, balancing the budget in 25 years, this is radical for them. When do they want to balance it? In the year 3000? So yeah, I support Rand Paul's approach much, much more than I support Paul Ryan's. Sorry, somebody had their hand up over here. Oh, I thought. Yes.
What is your position on the Patriot Act and the NDAA?
Well, first of all, I think the Patriot Act is a major problem. I think it's Title II and Title V that deal with the roving wiretaps for Title II, and Title V that deals with the ability of the government to write a national security letter and then make you an object of investigation for which you have no recourse whatsoever. You can't even hire a lawyer. You're not even allowed to tell anybody about it. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that we're doing this in our country. Frankly, I would be willing to talk about the possibility of reforming the Patriot Act, particularly those two titles, but I think we need to rethink the whole thing in light of what the civil rights and civil liberties of the American people are, and perhaps come up with a whole different approach to this, because I'm deeply disturbed about those aspects of the Patriot Act. And the same thing with NDAA. Look, the idea of arresting Americans and putting Americans in indefinite detention is, it's Orwellian. And I don't understand why any person, let alone any Republican or person who claims to be conservative, claims to believe in limited government, would vote for such a thing. I certainly would not, and I would see it as one of my tasks. This is what I mean about a constitutional caucus. I think a constitutional caucus would have the responsibility of looking at that and saying, hey folks, that's not constitutional. You can't do that in America. It's got to come to an end. And there are a whole host of things I think that need to be looked at in light of that. The most critical thing, in my view, for moving the agenda of freedom forward in our country is leadership. Now, people have said, what distinguishes you from the other candidates? Well, I think I'm probably quite distinguishable from the front runner, probably less so from the others. But the question that we have to answer is not could any of these people serve in the United States Senate, but rather who's the right person for this moment. I'm the only candidate who's a veteran, so I know what it is to put on a uniform and take an oath to give your life if necessary for your country. I'm the only candidate who's run a small business, so I know what it is to meet payroll. When I started my business, it was a radio station. I was practicing law. I reached into my own pocket. It was a distressed business. I paid off the people who had not been paid. They were angry. I paid them off, let them go, hired new people, redid the format, met payroll taxes, met payroll, fought with the FCC over the license because they were challenging the license of the radio station. So, I mean, I experienced the whole gamut of what it means to run a small business. And I'm the only person in this race who's not a politician. I'm 60 years old. I'm not plotting a political career. My wife is right here. She'd slap me if she plotted a political career. I barely got permission to do this. We've got to have people going who are not interested in trying to play political games, but are interested in really seeing the country change. I think leadership is a critical key. I've said that